Bog Panda.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Bog Panda. I am Dr. Mike, Edificial Pagan on everything, and joining me, as always.
Hi, everybody. This is Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram. And if you have a moment, we'd greatly appreciate it if you'd head on over to that Bog Panda YouTube channel, subscribe, give a video or two a like, maybe leave us a comment or two as well. Let us know what you'd like to have us cover. And also, while you're there, we've got a website that's not exactly maintained regularly, but we have one. And there is what is maintained regularly is our fine selections of t-shirts. So take a look there. Sure, I'm sure there's something there of interest.
Absolutely. And today, probably going to be a quick one. Always dangerous to say that.
Yep.
But so a popular retro gaming YouTube channel, RTG85, who is a noted Sega fan and particularly a pretty big 32X defender. He literally wrote a book about the 32X.
Oh, really?
And I have that book. So it's a good book. It's just, covers the 32X and a breakdown of every game for the platform. So he's a pretty big Sega guy. So he released an interesting video this week at the time that we're recording this. And that video was kind of his pitch to take over as president of Sega and what he would do to kind of course correct things for the way they're going. And what were your thoughts on this, sir, when I sent it to you?
Well, I feel kind of bad because I was not aware of his channel or his Sega fandom. So just going through this video immediately say, well, there seems to be a reason why this guy's got 1,000 times the subscribers we do. And that's not a joke or an exaggeration. That's an actual calculation. He has 1,000 times the number of subscribers that we do. So good job. And I can see why. Great content, good enthusiasm, knowledgeable. So it was fascinating to hear. The one thing I was shocked by is as clearly knowledgeable as he is, seems completely ignorant to the Bog Panda bump and the power of that. Which is a shame because that would have just rounded his plan out to make it bulletproof. But maybe he'll catch this video and learn in the future to bring Bog Panda to bear to kind of bring things home.
Absolutely. So sorry, everyone. I'm getting over a cold that Kelly gave me through Zoom.
Yeah, sorry.
That's how these things are spread.
Yeah,
you're worried about mask mandates. Where's our Zoom mandates?
That's right. Should put some sort of filter on for that. Yeah, and I don't know how, because we've recorded kind of multiple ones of these in advance, but very likely the order will play out that you'll hear an ill Kelly followed by a couple shows, followed by now we're going to get a series of Mike doing so well. So I'll take the blame. I did it electronically, so sorry.
It's a virus.
Yeah, I guess so.
But yeah, he laid out a little bit of a plan on what he would do for Sega. So we kind of talked about Sega recently with them, officially ending their arcade line and things like that. Are you a Sega guy, or how much of a Sega guy are you as far as their home consoles go?
So never a big, so I played a Genesis. I'd seen Genesis's, Genocide, whatever would be the plural of them. Looked like a great system. Big familiarity with the Dreamcast in terms of that. So I liked to have the console. It was just at the time I was in the PlayStation supply chain and kind of just stayed in my lane on that. What I had kind of lost, and we did have the show earlier where we talked about particularly some of their electromechanical games from early on, and more on them later. But I hadn't fully connected. So I certainly knew Sonic was an IP of theirs, but I didn't fully connect until watching his video that, they own the IP of some of my favorites. So Golden Axe is in there, Crazy Taxi, and that from an arcade standpoint. So those are two magic ones. Daytona, I know, is huge for a lot of people and they love it. I never got totally into it, but it's a great game, but as Mike and I have discussed before, this isn't a big driving game crew in terms of stuff there. So I knew that I'm not as steeped as you are and the 32X fandom and all of that. So, but that's where I'm at.
The very niche fandom of 32X. Yeah, huge 32X fan. No, I'm a big Genesis fan. Probably one of my favorite consoles easily. And then of course they did the add-ons with Sega CD and 32X to kind of keep up with the times without having to release entirely new iterations of their system. So giving fans, a more budget friendly, I guess would be the word, way to continue to upgrade with the times and to get into CD-ROMs, which they were an early adopter of, although the way they chose to go about it was interactive movies. They really thought was going to be the way CD-ROMs are going to go. And then of course with 32X. So I've been a Sega fan the whole time. I, like a lot of people though, did lose a little bit of faith in them when they kind of shot themselves in the foot. Sega was two different companies under one parent company, and they were kind of competing, especially moving into the 32-bit market. And instead of getting a great 32-bit system, we had two failed systems because they kind of cut each other's throats between the 32X and the Saturn. So that's unfortunate. I think those are two systems that not a lot of people have played, really. So by the time Dreamcast came around, which was a great system for what it was, people had moved on to PlayStation and things like that. So, and that's really mostly Nintendo's fault. So for anyone who doesn't know, Nintendo, to try to keep up with Sega, did develop their own CD-ROM add-on, the PlayStation, and decided they didn't need that. So they cut out Sony, who was their partner in that. And it didn't work out for anybody when they did that, because Sony decided to move forward on their own.
Seems to have worked out.
Yeah, it worked out for, spoiler alert. It worked out pretty well for Sony.
Yeah, but his game plan here going through is he offers some short, mid, and long range plans, and seemed a really solid plan to me. Starting off with on kind of that short term type of thing, the easy money, as you like to refer to it, which is basically load up Switch with, get the Switch marketplace full of a lot of their classic titles and advertise are there, making Sega games, Genesis games, Dreamcast games playable on a Switch is ironically, easier than getting Nintendo 64 games to work on a Switch, which is kind of odd because Nintendo's platform. But it's that big kind of jump in graphics that you'd have to deal with.
Yeah, I don't know where the issues lie with it, but I know there's tons of emulation problems with the Nintendo 64 games. And the couple that they have ported over to Switch, I'm not a Switch owner, but I've seen online people complaining they don't really run properly. And even the better kind of emulation of them really doesn't capture what was going on with the cartridges. So I don't know why. People smarter than me, I'm sure, could break that down. But yeah, Sega does a thing where everybody loves Sonic, everybody loves Golden Axe, everybody loves Altered Beast, things like that. But for whatever reason, whenever Sega is repackaging their classic games, it's always the same games over and over again. Maybe some of the sequels of those games, but they don't really branch out into their gigantic catalog. And I think that was a big important part of the point that he was making there too, that they have this huge catalog of games that are being ignored, and they keep kind of coming back to the same couple of IPs. And yeah, those are classics and they all are always going to do well for them, but they have all this other stuff that people love as well that seems untouched right now.
Yep. Yeah, I'd love it for them to make those available on the Switch, because I'd certainly buy some of those titles. Then kind of in his mid-range, he was talking about kind of going the route that we've talked a lot about on this show, which is to kind of do the Sega Genesis Mini and kind of come out with some package. Obviously, that's where the first step is kind of a pretty straightforward, minimal investment. You're up and running and the money's coming in. This one's a little bigger, manufacturing, supply chain issues, all that kind of fun stuff. But you're going to be able to handle emulation without a problem. And as we've seen with several of these minis that have come out, you can get a pretty cool looking system out pretty quick. And so that would be, and then at a price point too that you can sell it.
Yeah. So, for anyone who this kind of ties back into At Games. So At Games had done some Sega related plug and play things. And what his pitch is to do a Dreamcast Mini But
That's right.
At Games had announced they were doing an official Sega Genesis Mini, and Sega ended up taking that project away from them because of the mixed response to their plug and play systems that they had done. This is before the Legends came out when Sega took that away from them. At Games didn't have the greatest reputation. The Sega Genesis Mini that they did end up doing in house, though, is one of the best mini systems that were done because they were able to look at everything Nintendo did right, everything that Sony did absolutely wrong with the PlayStation Mini, which is terrible. I love my PlayStation Mini. I got it for $15. So, for $15, it was awesome. Had I paid more than that, though, I'd be very upset with the PlayStation Mini. So they're able to kind of look at what they did. And it was a really, really cool presentation of things because you not only were there hidden games, not only were there the obvious, Sonic, Golden Axe kind of stuff, there were a lot of lesser known titles, extremely rare titles. There was a new officially licensed Genesis from Sega title on there, and the fabled Tetris for Genesis, which at some point Sega denied ever even existed because only a handful of cartridges had ever made it out to market, and those go for exorbitant sums, and Sega denied their even existence of it, likely due to the fact there was a long drawn out court battle between Atari and Nintendo over who had the US rights for Tetris. So I think Sega just saw them battling it out and the money they were wasting. It was like, yeah, we don't want any parts of that, and just kind of stepped away from it. So wisely. But it finally got an official release. And another cool thing with the Mini, there are hidden games in there that you can unlock. And if you switch your region when you're going through the setup, you get not just the artwork and titles from whether you choose Japanese or European versions of the games, but sometimes those games are dramatically different. So Contra, for example, the Contra games were banned in Germany. So Konami decided to take those games and reskin them as a completely different game. So you get that German reskinning of the Contra games and things like that. So it unlocks a lot of really cool, nuanced kind of things like that. So they did a great job. And then, unfortunately, in very Sega fashion, they followed that up with the Game Gear. And what they did for the Game Gear was they made these tiny keychain style minis because the Game Gear was already small. And they're basically very expensive collector's items that are unplayable. And unfortunately, that's kind of Sega's MO, kind of doing something great and then shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
So they did it again. But I agree. I think there's a ton of demand now, especially for Dreamcast. Dreamcast are very, very popular. It was largely ignored at the time it came out because of everything that happened with 32X and Saturn. Two failed platforms in a row, largely their own fault because of the way they handled the marketing and release of them. So you just didn't have the consumer confidence behind Dreamcast when it came out, which is understandable, I think. And unfortunately, a lot of people ignored Dreamcast when it came out and all the cool stuff that it could do. So I think a mini for that makes a lot of sense.
Yep, absolutely. And then long term, so I think Sega has been making noises about their next big step is the big game step. It's the Fortnite kind of play, a free for all, and kind of monetize it a little bit different there. He does not appear to be. I think he feels one, that market's kind of covered off right now, and two, just didn't see if the value proposition would be unique enough to get a foothold. So he was kind of recommending long term to kind of either reimagine or extend and enhance some of their massive amounts of awesome IP into truly new games and those types of things, which again, bigger investment to kind of get what people now will say this is an acceptable level of playability and complexity and gameplay for a new title coming out now to run on powerful hardware, which I think is not unreasonable. I'm surprised he didn't take an angle on the Amico to kind of say maybe corner that market, kind of get a bunch of your IP over to the Amico, and then it'd be rolling in. But he didn't bring that up.
Well, there's been a lot of videos I've seen online of people demanding a Sega Master System Mini. And that's something that to me makes a lot of sense. A little bit lesser known in the US. So Sega's been competing with Nintendo since the 8-bit days. Their 8-bit system was the Master System. It's actually one of the longest running consoles, like officially running consoles. they were still overseas, particularly in South America. It was extremely popular in South America and certain parts overseas. They were still making games for that until the late 90s. And that was like an early 80s product. So, I mean, that was one of the longest console lives. We were well into like PlayStation existed and there were still Master System games coming out. An 8-bit console was still being manufactured. So there's a huge library of Master System games. So that makes sense to me too. That's something that seems overlooked. 32X is very divisive, but again, there are great games for it. That seems overlooked. Saturn is mostly overlooked.
Yeah.
So I agree with him that there's just a ton of stuff that, people haven't really played. Another thing he mentioned too is getting more into the home arcade market. There is a Sega cabinet from Arcade 1-Up, but that's kind of it.
Yep. Yeah, that would be another. I mean, again, and that's the Golden Axe cabinet, right?
Yeah, it's got 2 Golden Axe games, Altered Beast and Wrestle War. Yeah. And Shinobi. Yeah, it's 5 games.
Yeah, and they should have got so much more IP. I guess Outrun was out there too, but it's just not. I mean, there's a lot more they could be doing there, but you're not seeing that rolled out on Arcade 1-Up, and he was even iArcade too is another route there. Either of which I think would be great for them to go after, but we shall see. So we came across this video, thought it was one really interesting and well done. Some pretty good advice, with the notable exception of forgetting about the Bog Panda bump. Excellently done. So be interested in your thoughts. Did you kind of watch that video? Do you agree with the game plan? Do you have anything better? Are you disappointed Sega's not taking a little bit better advantage of what could be an opportunity to grow and get bigger? The other part that the piece of advice I would give them is, again, back to the Switch platform, but is to go back to recreate their electromechanical games as Switch games and get them available. I think it'd be amazing. I think it'd be super fun to do. Or VR. I guess they'd be really good in VR as well. But I just hate to see those things go away. That might be a way to kind of have us never forget the things like Periscope and all that fun stuff.
I don't know. A Sonic VR game could be cool.
Yeah. Be dizzy, but yeah, I'd be good. Cool. All right. Excellent. Anything else for this show, sir?
No, I think that's it.
Cool. Well, thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.